Hey everybody, how are we doing? All good to go? Thank you so much for joining us today, joining me, today. For this skills session through Fitness Australia, I would like to apologize in advance. I am in lockdown, so I do have teenage kids doing homeschool in the downstairs in the background. So if dramas happen, I apologize. But really, really super excited to have you guys here. Okay, so just before we get started with what's happening, and why people do actually lie on their nutrition records, I should probably introduce myself. So I promise I'm qualified. I have a master's in nutrition. I originally studied to be a naturopath, and then I went and focused right into nutrition, and that's become my major focus. And essentially what most of my work is these days is I do a lot of media work, which can be quite confusing at times for people, but also I am my company Beck Health and Nutrition is a CEC provider, so we've been providing courses for a long period of time. So I would love you to join some of our courses. All right, so and as I said, as you have questions, or if there's questions as we go through, I will just I'll check the chat box occasionally as we go through, and hopefully we will also have time in the end, or at the end. Okay, so first things first, when we're looking at nutritional analysis, okay, when we look at what we're trying to achieve here, there is so much to it, but what I want to really tailor for you guys today is the idea that you are, as fitness professionals, there's nutritional limitations, but there's also so many opportunities, particularly for lockdowns and things like that, to stay in contact with your clients via talking about diet as well as their exercise. Okay, so here's some of the topics we're going to be going through. We'll be going through why dietary assessment is so challenging in the first place, what COVID has restrictions have actually done in terms of over-reporting, under-reporting, etc. Why we actually do, why people do lie. We all lie at times about, what we're eating and drinking. And then, really, the foods they're most likely to, they are most likely to lie about, etc. And some really, practical strategies for how to actually get the most, the most honest reports from your clients. Okay, so I keep saying before we start, but before we get on to, the nitty gritty of nutritional assessment, because you guys are Fitness Australia fitness professionals, obviously it's really, really important that you understand what your scope of practice is with regards to, nutritional advice. Now, I've put the links on the webs on this PowerPoint slide. And just a little bit of housekeeping, the link that came through just before for the reminder to join has actually got the wrong link on it. I think it's from last month's skills sessions. So Fitness Australia will be actually sending out a link that you can download all of these slides. So you don't need to write notes or anything, but I will be actually, the slides will be available for download hopefully tomorrow, okay? But so if we go back to what you are allowed to do, all right? I don't want to get preachy. I don't want to get upset or around, the dietary guidelines, but I have been working with with personal trainers and Fitness Australia registered fitness professionals for over 17 years now. I'm showing my age. And realistically, generally one of the main problems that fitness professionals tend to say is they go, the dietary guidelines, they don't do anything. They don't give you any advice. They don't, they're out of date. Okay. Now, I'm not going to argue the point either way with this, but what I would say to you is that the Australian dietary guidelines are they are getting old. They are being reworked. Okay, the new dietary guidelines are actually coming out, due to come out in 2024. So this first quarter of 2024. So there's work behind the scenes on that now. However, the Australian Dietary Guidelines, generally, if your fitness clients or any of us actually followed the Australian Dietary Guidelines, we would all be a lot healthier. Okay, we can discuss how many grain foods, and we can discuss, you know, the strength of and weaknesses of the wording and all of those sorts of things. But as a general rule, the Australian Dietary Guidelines, most of the information I would be giving out, even as a professional nutritionist, comes from the Australian Dietary Guidelines. So don't be afraid to actually, I've put the link at the bottom there, but don't be afraid to actually, not just that, I've just popped the 10, you know, they're just basic one-page dietary guidelines on that side of the slides. However, you know, I've actually put the link for the full Australian Dietary Guideline document, okay? And the reason I've put that there is because generally so many people jump around, and every time I'm actually ever asked to comment in media or do anything at all in terms of nutrition, I will actually go to the full document, which is a several hundred-page document, and see what they say. And it's actually amazing when you look at it, how much information, really, really scientifically robust information is there. Okay, so don't be afraid to actually become friends with the Australian Dietary Guidelines. Now, I'm just going to check. I've just had a Q&A here. Oh, okay. Can we do this now? Chat. All right, so hello. Oh, good. So thank you for the hellos now. Can everybody hear me too? I love Peter Black. I love it. It's basic, but it is sensible. Okay, exactly. It's a great starting point. It's real, you're legally within your scope. You know you're not going to cause any dramas, etc. Okay, so all good. All right. So moving on from there. Sorry, as we go. All right. Okay. All right, so how long is this webinar? Just one question there. We are looking at around an hour. Hopefully I'll wrap it up just before an hour, but I'm certainly available for questions. So you're very welcome to get involved, ask questions as we go, or as we towards the end of the webinar. Okay, all right. So keep on chatting in the chat box as we go. All right, so feel like I've given you a whole lot of background information here, but what I want to say to you from the very beginning, okay, is you guys actually should be better at getting nutritional analysis and assessments from your clients than I would be, okay? And even though I have like lots of qualifications in nutrition, the thing is you guys have a relationship with your clients, okay? And you see your clients weekly, daily, weekly, monthly, depending on lockdowns and things, I know. But you have a much, much stronger relationship. So therefore, you have a lot more scope and opportunity to have that relationship, but also to be able to give that, be with your clients as they travel through the journey. If someone actually just comes and makes an appointment with me as a nutritionist and says, hey, fix my diet, I can help them with that, but they're not going to come back a couple of times a week and see me. They might see me occasionally, but they're not going to have that relationship. The other thing to just remember is even if you don't feel confident with your nutritional, like giving nutritional advice, the reality is that most clients expect you to give some nutritional advice. So, it's definitely being aware of what the Australian Dietary Guidelines are, doing a bit more training in nutrition is great too, if you can. But generally, you should feel entirely safe by giving advice within is in accordance with Australian Dietary Guidelines. But the main thing as I said, what I'm jealous of is the relationship that you guys have with your clients. No one, if someone loses weight or has this amazing health journey, they don't tend to tag their nutritionist or tag their dietitian in, where they will, it's like you guys are part of that health journey. So you've got that unique privileged role to work with clients over time, as in not over time, but throughout, through the journey. Okay, and during lockdowns and things, it's just one more, if you're in Sydney and you've got lockdowns, nutrition and actually just checking in with people about what they're eating and things is a really good opportunity just to keep that client interaction going, while we hopefully we'll be out of lockdown at some point soon. Excuse me, sorry. All right, so big question. Why is dietary assessment so challenging? So a few of these slides are really looking at nutritional assessment as a from a nutritional research point of view. Because a lot of the time in nutritional research, people go, why can't you even, why can't you decide if this is good or this is bad or what food causes this? The reality is nutritional researchers have to actually measure people who are, we're free living. We can't lock people up and say, okay, just eat this or just eat that and serve up particular foods. The only time that actually happens is in situations where, for example, you might be, people in the army, or say, for example, in a residential setting, etc., where they can actually dictate the types of foods that are eaten. But as a general rule, we are following up on free living individuals. And so we are relying on self-report. And so are you guys, realistically. You're not stalking your clients, hopefully. So you are relying on people to be as honest as humanly possible about why they eat. So I'm just going to jump to the chat box really, really quickly here, okay? And tell me in terms of, how many, I probably have jumped ahead here. Pop through in the chat box as we go, what the biggest question, actually, I'm jumping ahead. Sorry, I'll come back to that. Pop into the chat box whether or not you think your clients lie to you. Yes or no? Can't be that hard. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, got it. Love it, love it, love it. So we've struck a chord here. Okay, don't take it personally. And the thing is that, as I said, you guys are absolutely, and I love the fact we've got some interaction. That's so good, because we are very lonely, and we're there. And I love, someone's just said, sadly, yes, potentially even without realizing. Good point. All right, so absolutely, my apologies. Oh my gosh, I'm very unprofessional. All right. So it's exactly building trust. Exactly. So when we're looking at misreporting, often it's because, it's not intentional, but it's because we want to be seen as better. Okay, so we'll talk about that quite a lot as we go through the webinar. All right, so thank you so much for your answers. All right, so the gap between reported versus actual dietary impact. Now, as a nutritional researcher, we just assume that, sorry, I should have gone back to that other number. All right. Research in nutritional analysis, we basically expect that around 30% of the entire population lie or have some, misreport what they're eating, and up to 70% of some of the subgroups. So it's a completely, it's a scientifically observed phenomenon. It's not just you, they're not lying for, it's not lying to mislead you example, but it's just, we're going to go through some ideas on how, first of all, we don't want to catch people out because you want to work with them, but there are a couple of calculations that you might want to actually employ. All right. So as I said, you've got, in terms of research, you've got all these different studies that are, and the references are at the end of this PowerPoint presentation. But the main thing to remember is that underreporting. So obviously most people underreport, okay? As in they will say that they're eating less of the bad things and more of the good things. And it's universally observed that underreporting is a key limitation with self-reported dietary intake. Okay, so and in terms of when we look at it, it's universally observed, but the main thing down in bold, down the bottom, it's not intentional. Most of the time it's not intentional. Okay, so then I'll come back to this in a little bit, and maybe we'll go back to the chat box in a sec as well. But nutritionally, normally you could actually, when a nutritional researcher, says, okay, what are you eating? What are you drinking? Or even as a PT, what are you eating? What are you drinking, etc. We don't know. Normally the gold standard outcome at some point will be that someone has to weigh in. okay, that you've got to answer back, or you know what I mean, you've actually got to get on the scales at some point, or do a weigh-in or a measurement, etc., that is going to prove that, you know, you are actually doing what you're doing. And this is just a little aside, but I did a Medline research, it's last week, 4th of July, and said, okay, we normally would measure that up because you would normally be seeing your clients regularly. But because of COVID-19, even nutritional research has really been thrown out the window in terms of objective measurements, as in getting people to weigh in, waist circumference measurements, etc., because of the fact that we are now relying even more on self-report than ever before. Okay, and so in there of 180, there was 188 results on Medline. And none of them were actually talking about underreporting, but there was 188 peer-reviewed journal articles basically saying, different research saying that there has been weight gain. So the key weight gain during COVID. Okay, so if I go to the chat box again, for those of you guys who aren't in lockdown, especially Melbourne, you know, Melbourneites, etc., who have, you know, gone through the lockdown, that big long lockdown last year and then come out, how many of your clients put on weight over lockdown, that long Melbourne lockdown? Have I got Melbourneites there? Most, majority, all of them, most few. So that's good to know for Sydney's 90%. Yeah. So, all right, 80%. So huge. All right. Huge, because even if people are doing the exercise, they're not doing it at the same. Most did not tell the right weight, absolutely, because you're still at this point relying on the fact that you've got, you know, you're actually not just relying on nutritional reports, but you're also relying on, you know, weigh-ins. And I have to say, we're only I think we're I've lost track now, two and a bit weeks into lockdown in Sydney, and I haven't actually gotten on the scales for a few weeks myself. I'm doing the same amount of exercise, but you know, it's just kind of, lockdown does have a particularly interesting challenge. All right, most love it. All right, etc. Okay. Many were concerned about the fit of clothing. That's a great way to measure, Pamela. Cool, thank you. All right, so why are people actually going to lie to you? Okay, as we said, we've sort of touched on it already. It's, you know, it's not intentional, but there's a whole lot of reasons. The main one, psychologically, we have what's called social desirability bias. Okay, and social desirability bias is essentially a big long term for like me, make me fit in, make me feel special, etc. You don't want to be criticized. And you are looking for approval. Okay, you've got a trainer, you've got, you know, you guys are the trainers, etc. People actually trust you. They love you. That's why they keep coming back. They have a relationship with you, and they don't want to actually let you down. So they are going to say, "Oh yeah, I've been eating this, and I've been doing that, etc." So it's partly, it could be a situation where it's self-deception, but it can also be intentional in terms of, when I say intentional, where people are actually filtering, okay, what they're eating. Okay, so if I said to you right now, okay, if I said to you, just trying to think of the question, if I said to you, okay, who likes Tim Tams? Okay, you can or can't, you don't have to put them in the chat box. Okay, most people are going to be honest. Okay, most people are going to say, yes, I like Tim Tams, they're yummy, blah blah blah. You know, and I'm trying to stay away from Tim Tams at the moment. But the thing is that even when people are actually going, so they're going to be a little bit honest, but they're not going to be completely honest. Okay, so it's that kind of idea of like, yeah, but we're filtering the fact there we're filtering the information because we want to be seen as healthy. Okay. The other main thing to remember is that because you guys are fitness professionals, they want to impress you. They've made a decision that, you know, as in, it may be conscious, may be unconscious, but it's obvious you are their personal trainer or their fitness professional. And so therefore they are going to be more honest with, say, for example, their best friend than they are with you about what they've been eating. Okay. And the reason is this happens for all health professionals. We want, because we've looked at that idea of, we want to impress that person, and that we know that as a fitness professional, we care, we care a lot about health and nutrition, then we don't want to disappoint people. Okay. And so, I get it all the time as a nutritionist. I don't even generally, as day to day, don't walk around saying to people I'm a nutritionist. But even when I'm out in social functions and people know I'm a nutritionist, I'm sure you would get this all the time where, people go, oh, I don't normally eat like this, or they're filtering what they're eating, etc. And it's because you are a health professional, or, and a fitness professional, that people actually filter what they're doing. Okay. All right, so it happens all the, and so someone just said so true. It happens all of the time in terms of, so people are going to be less honest with you as a fitness professional than they are with, say, for example, their friends or family. However, they're going to be probably more honest with you because you've got a better relationship and longer over time. Okay. And emotional eaters fear. Absolutely, Richard. Yes, we'll talk about that in a sec. So if we have a quick talk just about why, what goes wrong with self-reported dietary intake. It's not just lies, it's not just, oh, we're just getting up and intentionally lie. But we've got a whole lot, from a nutritional research point of view, we've got a whole lot of factors that may impact on the way, on the way people report and why there might be glitches or underreporting, etc. So one is participant volunteer bias. I'll talk about that in a minute. Also, just in terms of estimating portions, classifying what is a pre-prepared meal, what's a mixed meal, etc. When you actually go to do nutritional analysis, etc. A hamburger can be completely different depending on who cooked it, etc., where it's come from, those sorts of things. So, you've got all in terms of mixed pre-prepared meals, and that's what so many of us, live on. Not ideally would be eating less processed foods, but it is hard to make those analyses, because even if you've got awesome apps or nutritional software that you are using, it's still an incomplete science. It's still, still relying on choosing foods that may not necessarily match up perfectly. All right, so analyzing prepared meals, etc. Memory lapses. So in particular, I'm jumping ahead, I'm probably cheating here, but jumping ahead, in particular, which snack of the day, I'll go to your chats, etc. But which snack of the day do people normally forget about if they're having snacks? What time of the day? Morning tea? Bedtime? Afternoon. Yep, it's actually afternoon from muesli bars. I love it. But yeah, always, just as a quick hack, always ask about afternoon snacks. Also after dinner, etc., afternoon, those sorts of things. But always afternoon snacks from the research tend to be the most missed snack of the day in terms of if you ask people what they've been eating. Another one after 4 p.m. Love it. Okay, so if we go back to here, change of behavior during recording period. So if we were comparing a nutritional research, where I say, for example, as a nutritional researcher, I wanted to go out and measure a population and say, okay, I want to see how they eat habitually, then it would be, it's really hard, because the minute people know that they are being measured, they change their behavior. Okay. However, for you guys, doesn't matter, because, or you shouldn't say doesn't, but it's realistically, if people change their behavior, even if you just give people a piece of paper and a pen and say, write down what you've eaten, don't care what it is, but write down what you've eaten for the next day, week, etc., you will get a change of behavior. Okay, so change, and so it's not indicative of habitual eating patterns. So these are all reasons why nutritional research is so sketchy out in the real world. And just as an aside, when I first did my first ever nutrition unit at university, I'm showing my age here, a long time ago, was back before, I think the internet was around, but it was before, any kind of apps. There was no smartphones, anything like that. the first thing they actually did was they said, we want all the first year nutrition students enrolled in this, with several hundred students. We want you all to actually, just for the next 7 days, do a weighed food record. Okay. Now, what do you, in terms of what happened with the group, if anyone has ever done a 7-day weighed food record, where you actually have to walk around with your little set of scales and get stuff, weigh every single thing you eat, everybody, well, I shouldn't say everybody, almost all of the group lost weight. Okay. Why would they lose weight? I'll go to the chat box if anyone wants to pop it in there. Painful awareness, worse, it's annoying, etc. By the end of it, because we were a highly, because you're already at uni studying nutrition, etc., people are already highly motivated. But by the time you actually, by about day 3, day 4, you're going, oh my God, I can't be actually bothered writing this down. Okay. And the way they measured it was, you also had to weigh yourself at the start of the 7 days and the end of the 7 days, and almost all lost weight. Okay, so exactly, but skip meals, Christopher, yep, skip meals, too hard to weigh, which is exactly, from a practical point of view for me, I know this was long, but I'll never forget it, it was a really good experience to actually just go, I actually can't be bothered. Or you just go, you know what, I'll just grab an apple because it's easy to write down, or I'll just grab a piece of fruit because it's easy to write down, etc. Okay, so in terms of measurements and things, so it changes your behavior. So in terms, the other thing is to accountability. The minute even you're being measured, people change. Okay, you're being watched, so you're going to change your habitual behavior as well, because you kind of, even if you go, even if you've got all the, and say, please just go about it as you, it's like the same thing as, if you're being watched or audited at work or anything like that, when people just go about your normal business, when you're being watched, you change your behavior. Okay, makes total sense. All right, so volunteer bias is absolutely another one, which is probably, an interesting one for you guys to just consider. But volunteer bias is the people who absolutely, if I said to you guys right now, who wants to tell me what you have eaten today, some of you guys would be super keen. Okay, some of you guys would jump up, please pick me, etc. And those people who are going to be the pick-me's are going to be the pick-me's. Why? Why are people, keen to share their nutritional data? They had a good day. Absolutely, because they ate well. All right. When you're good, it's like, have a look at me, look at this. So it's that whole volunteer bias of, oh, okay, I'm back on track. Hey, look, I'm going to put it on Instagram. I'm going to do this. I'm going to take photos, blah, blah, blah. I'm eating the right thing. Okay. The ones who suddenly retreat back and go, oh, don't ask me today, or it's because it's that kind of, before you don't even want to be, drawn into it. That is going to be absolutely, it's human nature, but it's the people who haven't eaten that well that day. Okay, if you're proud, you're going to tell people that. If you're not, is that proud, is going to, that whole idea of pride is so, is so important. But it's also important in terms of, say, for example, if you guys are doing things like challenges or trying to get different clients involved, the ones who retreat back, who don't want to actually share their diet history, are going to be the ones that probably need the most help. Okay, the other thing is, so the other thing in terms of, we just need to notice that in terms of individual fluctuations, say, for example, right now, I would say that, just even in Sydney, for an example, or in Melbourne, when you guys were in that extended lockdown, when you're going through the idea that, sometimes you're going to be keen, but other times you are much, much less likely. So I'd say most Sydneyites are going to be a little bit more like, oh, don't ask me about my diet and exercise right now, because, we're in lockdown and we don't know when we're getting out. Okay. So even for me personally, when they first said 2 weeks, I went, okay, I'm going to be really, really, use this as an opportunity, blah, blah, blah. But Paul said, not anytime soon, in time of getting writing out. But, you know, as the days and weeks go on and as the press conferences go up, you start going, oh, I don't know, like, you know, we're now up to 3, you know, getting close to 3 weeks, etc. Where, you know, psychologically, we are going to be, you know, the Sydney-siders are going to be a little bit less likely to be sharing their diet tips anytime, or, you know, what they're eating anytime soon. Whereas psychologically, if we were to say, if Gladys was to say, okay, Friday, you're all out, gym's open, everyone can do whatever they want as of this Friday, suddenly it'll be like, oh, you know, like everyone would be out there doing more exercise, doing more, you know, doing that, because it's suddenly like we've got an outcome. Okay. So in terms of their, absolutely, I'm just coming back to Marrakesh. Sydneyites are struggling with funds and kids are online. Shapes are great. All those things. So we are struggling, you know, we're all struggling with a whole lot of things going on, as well as being winter. All of these things are happening in terms of psychologically, you know, how are we sticking to our diet? You know, how are we sticking to our diet? And, you know, are we actually being honest? Okay. So underreporting, we'll just go through some real practical stuff now. All right. When we look at the definitions, underrecording is simply saying something like, I had two Tim Tams. Okay. As a nutritionist, if I read someone's written down, I had 2 Tim Tams, I'm probably thinking they had 5. Okay. That's just, you know, that's me. Maybe it's cynical. But, you know, that 2 Tim Tams is probably less likely. So it might be in terms of the type of food, or it might be under recording in general. Also, like we said before in that example I gave of, you know, my first year uni subject, where, you know, under eating, where people have changed their behavior, eat less, etc. Okay, because they are being recorded. So, you know, say for example, with your clients, if you just said to them now, okay, you know, for the next 3 days, I'm going to record everything you eat. Can't do it because we're not available, etc. But if you know you're going to be recorded, then you are going to actually eat less. And I'll show you some ways of working out how that's accessible. All right, just as an aside there, this is beyond the scope of what we're talking about today, but over-reporting is also something that, you know, can happen, where people are actually, you know, possibly over-reporting the amount that they are eating. It's realistically, for most of the population, it's going to be more that they are over-reporting healthy foods and under-reporting the unhealthy foods. But if you are, you know, if you do suspect, or if you're concerned about any of your clients looking at, in terms of that they are actually saying they're eating more than they are, then the Fitness Australia actually has a whole policy and guideline, the links on the PowerPoints that you will be able to download, but it's also the link to the Inside Out and Fitness Australia policy document is actually, you know, really accessible via the Fitness Australia website. So just be wary of that. But in terms of research, there's not that much research into the phenomenon of overeating within dietary records. Okay, so the groups of people most likely to underreport. Now, these are not picking on anybody. This is purely via the research. This is the data from nutritional analysis from around the world. Okay, so people who are overweight or obese are more likely, it's the strongest association, the single most consistent factor related to underreporting. Now, always remember, just scientifically, association doesn't mean cause. Just because your body mass index is over 25, that doesn't necessarily mean you are going to underreport or misreport your dietary intake. However, the association is there. Okay, there's a strong association. So scientifically, the association is there, and as the body mass index goes up, the probability of underreporting also increases. The sad part of that, of course, is that they're the clients that actually need the most support with their nutrition and also their exercise. Yeah. All right. I'm just checking the chat box. All right. Okay. All right. So So we've said people who are overweight or obese, according to body mass index, we know from the data that they are the most likely to underreport. And as we're not out to trick anyone, I know, I used the term Big Little Lies as a catchy title for this webinar, but I certainly don't, we're not out to, trip people up or do anything like that. We want to be as supportive and positive as possible. But just being aware of these groups can be really, really helpful. So obviously people with a body mass index higher than 25 are going to be more likely to underreport. Females are more likely than males to underreport, and whether or not that be for all sorts of, sociocultural reasons, that would definitely be the case. Also, in terms of characteristics of women, if we look at the breakdown, most women who are going to underreport will have a greater BMI, will have a higher social desirability score, as in people psychologically, this, who like to be approved of, who actually, are people pleasers, etc. So all of those psychological factors, body dissatisfaction, and also lower income and socioeconomic status. Okay, and that's a little bit of a which came first, the chicken or the egg, because socioeconomic status, not just with males but also females, a disadvantaged background is absolutely very, very strongly associated with a higher body mass index. Now, just as I don't want to get all preachy on you here, but just as an aside, as a public health, I have a huge passion about public health nutrition. And that even when governments or people tend to say it's all about individual choices in terms of nutrition and also weight gain and all those sorts of things, yes, absolutely, at the end of the day people's choices are their choices. However, there are incredibly strong factors that drivers and factors and motivators around people from disadvantaged versus advantaged areas, which people in advantaged areas have more access to gyms, have free time, well, not at the moment, sorry, but free time, money to spend, flexibility with work, all these sorts of, better access to healthy foods, less access, say for example, even in Sydney, we know that, and this is a phenomenon across the world, there are more fast food outlets in disadvantaged areas than in advantaged areas of cities around the world. This is not just in Sydney, okay? This is around the world, and it's a public health, it's absolutely a public health observation. Okay. So also people, if we're going back to groups that are more likely to underreport, people who are on, who are regularly on diets, people, who go on diets are more likely to underreport. Smokers and low socioeconomic background. Now, I've put both of those, smokers and low socioeconomic backgrounds, I think I've already touched on that already with the socioeconomic factors, but smokers, that's also associated with lower socioeconomic backgrounds as well. But these are, if you want to do more reading into underreporting, etc., Gibson, which we've got the references at the end, but Gibson textbook is basically the Bible of nutritional assessment. So the reference is certainly available for you. Okay, so I'm just going to, before I start on this, I'm just going to check the chat box again. Sweet. Okay. Oh, absolutely. We haven't even talked about Uber Eats. Kylie, you love it. Yeah, I don't love it, but yeah, Uber makes it easier for people to access more. So many. So even you've got more access to unhealthy foods, and even when we start going off on a tangent here, but even if you are eating from getting takeaway, or you are eating from a what's perceived as a healthy food outlet, we know from research that basically anything where you are making the food yourself, you are less likely to have as much sugar, salt, and fat in that food as even if you went to a healthy, takeaway bar or healthy restaurant, etc., that are claiming that they tend to be bigger portions. They tend to actually have more sugars and sauces and all those sorts of things that make things taste good. So the easiest way to improve your diet, I shouldn't say easy, it's hard work, but the most simple way to improve your diet is to actually always cook from scratch, which is hard work. But you know, even just, but we know that the minute you get food manufacturers involved, or even just restaurants involved, it's going to, there's more sugar, there's more salt, there's more fat added to the foods. Okay. All right. So this slide here, oh God, this one's, sorry, excuse me. This slide here is a big one. So I'm just checking on the time. Oh, good. All right. As I said, these slides are available, but I just want to point out a few things. So when we come to dietary assessments, okay, in terms of how to actually measure someone's dietary intake, you have food records. We've already touched on this, but the main thing to remember from a takeaway is that it's a high burden to get people, as in it's hard work, to get people to actually record everything they eat and drink over a 1 to 7 day period. Okay, things like apps and stuff do make it easier. The research basically says that the apps and the photographic food records are basically on par with weighed food records in terms of analysis. But we also know that it's hard work to actually go through that, but also increasing the number of days, the more the days you actually measure, the less accurate that measurement's going to be. Okay, so then if we go to something like a 24-hour 24-hour recall. 24-hour recalls for me personally, if I was I'm not a fitness professional, but if I was a fitness professional and I had access to my clients, like if I had a group of clients and I was working on their nutritional support, I would be more inclined to actually use a few, strategic 24-hour recalls. Okay, so because even though a 24-hour recall only is, doesn't give you a habitual pattern, it's easier. It's less burden on the client. It also allows you to actually check in with people at different times. And also just in terms, I'm jumping ahead, but in terms of time and energy and getting things across the week, for example, never just ask your client about, their dietary intake on a Monday, because we're all healthier on a Monday. As you know, even if you drive, if people at the gyms are busier when they're not in lockdown on Mondays, etc., everybody's healthier, most people are healthier on a Monday. So you might actually do a 24-hour recall on a Monday, on a Thursday, on a Saturday, etc. You want at least one weekend day as well. Okay. Then you've got a diet history, and diet histories are really more along, the realm of nutrition researchers. But for you guys as fitness professionals, what you want to do is actually use your, relationship with your clients to actually have a 24-hour recall, get people to actually do a 24-hour recall, or even just a 24-hour weighed food record a few times throughout the, or a photographic food record, but also just, you guys are in conversation with your clients, you're working with them, etc. So when you just actually getting that idea of like, what are your favorite foods, etc., you're getting conversations going where you can actually pull out the fact that, okay, if this is your favorite food, but it's never showing up in your 24-hour food, 24-hour recall or your food records that you're giving me. Okay, so just a couple of those ideas there. There is some technology. I don't think you guys are, it's sort of beyond the scope for fitness professionals at the moment, but there are quite a few nutrition researchers that are using wearable camera technology, where you'll actually put participants, and put cameras on them, and they'll actually, have a camera around their neck. And you will actually measure it that way. But obviously you've got privacy, you've got a huge amount of client burden in terms of taking that information in. So this is just a quick slide around burden on either I've put their PT, but fitness professional collection, analysis, etc. We've got highs and lows. But the main thing I want to take across to here is that do any of these methods actually represent habitual intake? The answer is maybe. Okay, so we still don't know. All right, so it's still a guesstimate at best. Okay, now what I want to do is I think we've already spoke. We might come back to talking about photography if we've got a chance in a little while. Okay, but apps, I would love you just in the apps right now. Can you tell me? Yep, so visual picture. Can you guys tell me what your favorite, if you're using apps, what are your favorite apps to use for nutritional assessment? MyFitnessPal, 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 yeah, pretty, okay, yep, cool. Fitbit, yep, cool. Trainerize, Just Coach, yep, awesome, okay, all good. They're all good. Okay, MyFitnessPal is by far, you know, the most widespread, but we've got Garmin, we've got, yep, all those, great. Okay, and okay, now you've all there, pop them there. Can you also tell me, are you happy with MyFitnessPal? Yeah. Good compliance, easy, etc. People like it. Okay. Someone said no. Okay. They went past. All right. So love in maybe we'll have a chat at the end about why, etc. Not bad, etc. All right. So MyFitnessPal is what we know. I have no affiliation with any of the apps. I actually don't do nutritional analysis one-on-one that much anymore with clients anyway. But when it comes to, you know, using the apps, it is quick and easy, but also remember that even the stuff behind the apps, like all those limitations I put up at the very start, you know, they are guesstimates. You know, if you are matching those foods, you are going, you know, so you've got different numbers for the same food, etc. So there's still going to be some confusion. However, as a general rule, it doesn't matter which app you use. It doesn't matter if you're using a piece of paper or a pen. It doesn't matter which one you use. Any nutritional assessment is going to get, hopefully, some level of habitual behavior change, which is good for you guys as fitness professionals, because if people actually lose weight or lose centimeters off their waist or feel better about themselves, etc., any of those things is a good outcome. So don't get yourself too wrapped up in which one you're using, whatever works. Okay. Now, I don't want to go too much into the maths behind this, but if you do want to identify underreporting, there's three main ways. So obviously one is doubly labeled water, which is a laboratory, you know, centrally requires laboratory testing, so is not readily accessible to us. The next one down is the Goldberg cutoff method. Now I've got there in there the Goldberg cutoff method. I'll jump through to the slides, and as I said, your slides will be available for download. But the Goldberg cutoff method was actually developed in 1985. 1992, and it's essentially for nutritional assessment. If I, for example, went out and surveyed 1,000 people and said, what did you eat yesterday? Sorry, not if, okay, we'll say, what did you eat yesterday? Now, if I wanted to see who was underreporting within that 1,000 people, I would actually do a calculation, which you've got here, which is your body mass, your BMR, or your basal metabolic rate. Now I'm going to jump, sorry if I'm jumping around on slides, but there you've got your BMR calculations on the next slide, but you are going to work out your BMR times what we would deem as a sedentary, just your normal 1.55 sedentary physical activity level. And if for a one-day record, the person reports that their energy intake for that 24-hour recalls is less than 0.9 of what the expected energy intake would be for a sedentary person, then therefore you would deem them as a underreporter. And from a research point of view, you would actually you would cut those people from your data analysis. Okay, so from nutritional research, they go, we had this many underreporters and we took them out. Okay, but with a client, you're not going to go, oh, you're an underreporter, that's it, you know, and throw out their dietary record. There's still a lot of value in that record. Now, just interestingly, with the Goldberg cutoff method, for those of you guys who are looking at your screen, seeing as the days increase, so one day you've got a 0.9 ratio. across 4 days, you've got 1.06. So it actually goes up across the number of days that you are reporting, because assuming you've got different levels of physical activity, etc. But for those of you guys who like maths, who want to get your calculator out, you're very, very welcome to actually come back to the slides later and use the Goldberg cutoff method. But in terms of outcomes, I don't think you want to, go and upset your clients and say, I think you're underreporting, because that's not going to be helpful. All right. But it certainly is what we use in nutritional research. Okay. But the easiest thing, unless we are in lockdown, the easiest ultimate assessment of underreporting or misreporting is going to be, at some point, you're going to either get a weigh-in or a measurement or an objective measurement that is going to say this person, you could, so assuming lockdown doesn't last for too long, but say it's going to last for another 2 weeks. If you said to your clients right now, okay, for the next 2 weeks, I want you to tell me everything you eat. I want a weighed food record for the next 2 weeks. And I want you to weigh me today. I want you to weigh yourself today. And I want you to weigh yourself, in 2 weeks at the end of lockdown. You would, you will get some people would probably lose weight, depending. You would obviously then need to chase them up, etc. But if you actually, we had the surety, I know I'm being Sydney centric right now, but if we had the surety, or even for those of you guys outside of Sydney who are lucky enough to still be seeing your clients, if you had a client that is coming back in 2 weeks' time for a measurement, then you are going, they are going to be more motivated to actually hopefully, do the diet, okay, and be more honest. Common sense. Okay. So what are the foods that are people? So we've sort of talked about, so the Goldberg cutoff methods, etc. They're all around just total dietary energy intake. But when we look at total dietary energy intake, that's just in terms of kilojoules or calories. But when we actually, the reality of most people is they are going to over-report the healthy stuff, and they are going to underreport the unhealthy stuff. Okay, so in terms of what is being underreported from the nutritional, this is from a massive Medline research. I did a whole research peer-reviewed article around this, about what foods are most likely to be underreported, and it's going to be supplements are actually number one. So we always need to remember, I know you guys shouldn't be advising of people using supplements, but if they're having shakes or dietary in those, if they are consuming them, you need to put them into your calculations. Alcohol makes sense, especially during lockdown. Snack foods, in particular, afternoon snacks are the worst. But all of the stuff, sugar, cake, lollies, we know, it's common sense stuff. Okay. Good question, Lauren. What if they overeat healthy foods? Okay, we'll come back to that. Innate taste preferences. Everybody, from the day we are born, humans love sweet, salty, and fatty flavors. Okay, so it's very likely that all of these, the stuff that we perceive as unhealthy, people are going to underreport. If they are going to over-report, underreport healthy food, people are quite happy to talk about all the healthy food they've eaten. Like we said at the start, if you're proud of what you've eaten, then that's great. However, just as for you guys, even for kilojoules and things, I live on the northern beaches of Sydney, and so we have lots of healthy options available, etc. Naked bowls and all those sorts of menu, and smoothies and all those sorts of things are around, and everyone's super healthy. However, even if you go down to one of those healthy meals, it's like, honestly, I mean, I do a lot. I run 8 kilometers every morning. I do lots and lots of exercise. But when you actually go and grab yourself even one of those healthy bowls, they're huge. They're heaps bigger. They probably should really be doing, 1.5 meals to 2 meals. Okay. So absolutely people can, overconsume the healthy foods, especially when they are being made by, a lot of the time they might be healthy, but they've got lots of dressings and things too. But generally, people will over-report the healthy stuff. And at the end of the day, we know that when you look at nutritional research at the most basic level, the easiest way that you can improve somebody's diet, get rid of any other nutritional advice. But if you just say to people, I want you to focus on eating 5 servings of vegetables per day and 2 servings of fruit, but let's just focus on 5 servings of vegetables per day. I can guarantee that and when I say servings, we need half a cup of cooked vegetables or 1 cup of raw vegetables is 1 serving. They need to be 5 different vegetables. But if all of your clients ate 5 servings of vegetables per day, I would guarantee that in 2 weeks' time, they would have actually lost weight. They would have actually, they would feel better. They would they would also reduce their risk of heart disease. They would improve their gut health, etc. So from a really, really simple, practical point of view, I always say to people, they go, you've got a really cool job. And I go, yeah, I've got a master's degree in teaching people how to actually just eat more vegetables. It's the most simple way, okay? And it will improve people's health. So I'll stop getting ranty. All right, so, in terms of what are you going to do? If people are lying, if your clients are, being we don't say, but not lying, but being a little bit overly zealous in what they are or aren't eating, just remember that even though in nutritional research we would actually take that and say we're not going to actually, put that into our data, if a client actually, fills in their dietary record, that's still going to have value. It's not going to, I would very much doubt, as much as we've said big little lies, I don't think many of your clients are actually lying completely. Okay, they're not just making an entire thing up and going, yeah, this is, and it doesn't reflect it in some way. So what you can do is actually use that information that they've given you and actually go, this is a guide. This is the roadmap to how they want to eat. Okay, so you want to bring it back to them and go, okay, was this a good day or a bad day for you? Okay, how could you have done better? Put it back onto them, but it's also, it's got so much value, even though it might not be completely honest. Okay, so it's not going to be a complete fabrication. So in terms of, even if people do change their behavior, it doesn't matter. As long as they're going to get results, then that's great for you guys. Okay. And also remember that giving any nutritional advice or support, just give people, support and love, etc. They will love that, etc. So staying in contact with your clients. So a couple more things before we finish off, and I'm happy to hang around for questions. Best practice nutritional assessments. It's not going to be a complete fabrication. When you ask about people's diets, ask about different days of the week. I think we've already spoken about that, but as we said, I'm sure you would all agree that Monday is generally tends to be the healthy day. People have been out to the shops and, done their food prep and all those things if they have. Ask about afternoon snacks, ask about alcohol, ask about, their favorite foods, ask them about their big day, when you're in training at other times. You don't want to catch them out, but get them, what's your favorite food? What's your favorite cheat food? What's your favorite this, etc. And then actually bring it back to them and go, well, okay, how many times a week, but don't do it, to trick them, but just get that honest rapport from them. The other thing is too, modeling it yourself. Be honest. We don't all have perfect diets. I can tell, I try. It's my job, but we all fall off the bandwagon, and being honest is the best thing in terms of getting that true representation of the diet. And main thing also there, consider measuring or asking about dietary intake at strategic intervals. A lot of the time you will have clients, you get new clients, you talk to them about their nutrition, but keep that conversation open. All right. Okay. A few more things. Psychologically, positive motivational techniques. We have social comparisons. If you know that everybody is, in the same boat, if suddenly you realize your friends are losing weight or your friends are doing more training, etc., then we want to actually be a part of that too. Okay. So, people respond to positive reinforcement. Okay. Immediate rewards. Now, this is a hard one, particularly for Sydney-siders, because it feels like life's been put on hold. It feels like almost like the rest of 2021 is almost being written off in terms of work, life, etc. Hopefully that's not the case. But it does feel like all the big events, etc., have, been pushed back. and we do love immediate rewards. So whether or not that even just be a like, whether it be a, you know, love heart on their Instagram account or whatever it be, but give people love and support, etc. And also we've got progress monitoring there. And what we mean by progress monitoring is not just remembering your clients as they come in, but also keeping a track of them over time. Okay. The other thing is too, we all love, I think we've already jumped on this, but, and, you know, I don't know how popular or unpopular it would be, but we love a gold star. We love a tick. And say, for example, even in terms of Sydney anyway, in terms of vaccinations and things, I've had my first dose of vaccination and I'm waiting, but it's funny that people are posting, which is great, but it's like that kind of, we want the green tick. We want the, you know, we want the, yay, you know, I've done this, and that doesn't have to, you know, be vaccination, but we do have that psychological, you know, I've achieved something here, even though it's really just sitting there and getting vaccinated. All right. So main things to remember, I won't go through every single point here, but just give love, give support, etc. You know, we're all in it together. And the main thing that you guys have that nutritionists and dietitians don't is that ongoing relationship, and people have the trust. They know that you care. And I just love that quote. People don't know how much you know until they know how much you care. Okay. And once you show care and love and support and all of those sorts of things, that will keep your clients going. And from a business point of view, I know that, you know, everyone's struggling with all sorts of uncertainty, but keeping your clients in communication, showing that you care, one, keeps us off the streets and keeps us motivated. You know, I was super happy to even be doing this webinar today, but two, it's keeping your clients happy and, you know, keeping that interaction going. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to finish there. Oh my goodness. All right. So there. All right. So has anyone, I'll just go back to the chat box. Has anyone there, I know I've talked a little bit over, oh, it's only 2:01, so pretty close, okay? But anybody who wants to stay online, I'm happy to stay online. Luke, I hope that's okay. But please feel free, I am not going anywhere, we're in lockdown. So please feel free to pop questions in the chat box, etc. And for those of you guys who need to leave, totally understand, and thank you so much for your attention. I will send you out a link to the download for those PowerPoint slides, and I hope I haven't talked your head off. Okay, thanks so much, guys. It was lovely to have you.